1961. New Haven, a basement room at Yale University. A man in his 40s sits at a table. In front of him, a device with levers. The scale reads 15 volts, 30, 45, 450. In the next room, another person, not visible, only a voice. An experimenter in a grey coat says calmly, "Please continue." The man presses 75 volts. The voice cries out. He stops and laughs nervously. Is he okay? The answer is steady. The experiment requires that you continue 120 volts, 150, 300. The voice begins to plead. The man sweats, presses his lips together, looks at the experimenter. The experimenter doesn't shout, doesn't threaten, doesn't push. He simply stands there and repeats, "You have no other choice. You must go on," and the man goes on. He's not a sadist, not a psychopath. He's an accountant. By the end of the experiment, 65% of participants reach 450 volts. Not because they are evil, because they were told it was necessary. And perhaps the most unsettling part of this story is not that he obeyed, but that he no longer had to decide. You are watching this video right now. Did you choose it yourself? Or did the algorithm already know you would click? And if it knew, which one of you was actually deciding? Milgram's experiment became a sensation, but it didn't appear in a vacuum. The 1960s, after the war, after Nuremberg. The question haunting society was simple. How did ordinary people become part of a system of destruction? The answer everyone wanted to hear. They were monsters. But the problem is that there are few monsters, and a lot of accountants. History is rarely moved by monsters. It is maintained by those who simply do their job. In post-war Europe and the US, a quiet crisis was unfolding. If evil can be committed by ordinary people, where is the line between them and us? Against this backdrop, another anxiety was rising. The Cold War, the nuclear threat, everything changing too fast. People wanted order, clarity, instructions. When the world becomes complex, the most attractive thing is structure. Someone knows better. Someone is responsible. Someone says what to do, and suddenly, responsibility feels lighter. We like to think that submission is weakness, but more often it is conservation of energy. Thinking is genuinely hard. Doubt is unpleasant. Taking responsibility is frightening. When someone says, "This is the correct position," something inside exhales. A feeling appears. I'm not alone. I won't make a mistake. I know where I stand. This is not stupidity. This is a very old and very understandable mechanism. From childhood we are taught, the teacher knows, the doctor knows, the state knows, the expert knows. And sometimes that's true. The problem doesn't begin where people listen. It begins where they feel good about not having to think. In Milgram's experiment, participants often stopped and asked, "Who is responsible for what is happening here?" The experimenter answered calmly, "I am responsible." And the tension dropped. That is the key. Not the order itself, but the fact that the weight lifts along with it. Someone else's certainty works like a painkiller. When a decision has already been made from above, the question changes. Not, "Is this right?" but, "Am I doing this correctly?" A subtle shift, but a very important one. In 1955, psychologist Solomon Asch gathered groups of people and asked them to compare the length of lines on cards. A simple task. The answer was obvious to the naked eye, but almost everyone in the group was planted, and they deliberately named the wrong answer. A third of the real participants agreed with them, saw one thing, said another. Afterwards they were asked why. Some said they decided they must be wrong. Some said they didn't want to seem strange. But some were more honest. When everyone around me saw the same thing, I felt relief. I didn't have to hold that uncertainty inside anymore, and that is not cowardice. Being the odd one out is not a metaphor. When you stand alone against everyone, it is physically uncomfortable. The body responds the same way it does to a real threat. The brain reads disagreement as danger. Agreement feels like shelter. And here is where most people stop and think, that's not me. Or I would have spoken up. I would have noticed. It's a natural reaction, but almost everyone feels it. But ASH's participants thought the same thing before they walked into the room. Milgram's accountant probably thought it too. The research does not reveal the weak. It reveals the conditions, and what those conditions do to everyone, including the ones who believed they were different. There's a temptation to think that educated people surely think for themselves, but psychologist Jonathan Haidt found something uncomfortable. The brain doesn't work like a judge who collects facts and then delivers a verdict. It works like a lawyer who decides what's true first and then goes looking for evidence. But we don't arrive at beliefs through reasoning. We feel something, then construct the explanation afterwards. And here is the paradox: the smarter a person is, the more convincing those explanations become. High IQ doesn't protect you from this trap. It just makes you better at defending it. 2017, a college in Washington State. Morning. Professor opens his email. Among the messages, one asking him to sign a letter against a colleague. At the bottom, already about 100 names. People he knows. People he trusts. He doesn't read what exactly the colleague is accused of. Not because he doesn't want to. Simply 100 names. It looks like something already decided, like a formality that needs to be processed. He signs. Between an email to a student and a meeting reminder. 10 seconds, maybe less. He won't even remember the exact text of the letter, but his signature is there. The colleague is somewhere on campus at this moment drinking coffee. Doesn't know yet. His career will change, and the professor has already opened the next email. This is the most precise mirror, not the one who presses the lever and sweats, but the one who signs and is already thinking about something else, a decision about someone's fate as one of the day's tasks. And that is how harm becomes ordinary. The problem was not the dictators, the problem was the comfort. We tend to think that danger looks like pressure, like a threat, like someone forcing you. But Milgram showed something different. No one forced anyone. No one threatened. The experimenter spoke quietly and politely. And that was enough, because people weren't waiting for an order. They were waiting for permission not to think. This doesn't only happen in laboratories or wars or great historical moments. It happens every day. When we read a headline and don't open the article because the position is already clear. When everyone around us is outraged and we join in because working it out takes too long. When we turn to anyone who promises clarity, a framework, a system, a voice that knows who's to blame, because carrying uncertainty ourselves is exhausting. It's easier that way to hand the responsibility to someone else. We fear people who give orders, but we rarely notice our own exhaustion from a complicated world. We don't need a dictator. We just need someone who speaks with certainty, a channel that knows who's to blame, a feed that explains every morning what to think today. We are not looking for evil. We are looking for someone to carry the weight of uncertainty. And sometimes we don't even notice we've already found them. There is an illusion that freedom is our natural state, that thinking for yourself is easy, that doubt is normal, that standing alone in your opinion is not frightening. In reality, it is work. Every time. An order, someone else's position, 100 signatures at the bottom of a letter. They remove that work, and that is why they are so attractive. The most unsettling question is not whether we would have obeyed, but whether we would have felt relief. And if we did, whether we would have noticed, and whether noticing would have changed anything.